All right, guys, another day, another strength, and we got another fitness fact or fiction today. This time the topic is building a base / work capacity. So I hear this all the time, right? It gets thrown out there like we're going to build a base, we're going to build your work capacity, but I feel like no one ever actually explains what that means, right? So I'm going to break it down. First of all, it's a fact or fiction. Turns out it's actually fact, right? This is actually a thing. It's just oftentimes it's not explained. Like people will just throw it in there and be like, yeah, so during this phase, we're going to do this stuff because we're building a base. And it's like, what does that actually mean, right? So let's get into it. It's basically, you can relate the term to a pyramid. And I'm pretty sure this originated from endurance training, in the sense that you have like your zone 5 training, which is like sprinting, right? Then you have zone 2 training, which is your low intensity steady state. And the zone 2 training, right, gives you a wider base if it's like a pyramid. And then the peak up at the top is your like zone 5, your sprint, right? So you can apply the same thing to strength training. You have your base at the bottom, which is going to look a little bit different. Then you're gonna have your peak at the top, which is like your peak strength, right? So let's talk about that a little bit, right? The premise is that you're increasing your ability to recover and handle whatever type of training is going to follow as you approach the peak, right? So for example, if your goal is to squat 500 pounds, that's gonna be your peak. Then you have to build a base with certain variations that are still specific to the squat, right? But you're gonna be less specific when you're at the base of the pyramid, right? So you might do a lot more like high bar squatting. You might do higher rep sets like in the 5 to 10 range. You might do more machine work, upper back work, ab work, isolation stuff, right? Building the muscle mass involved in the squat, but not necessarily practicing the specific squat a whole bunch, right? So this is going to require adaptations in muscle size, conditioning, and strength, right? So even when you're peaking, you're still gonna get all three of those things, but towards the start, it's a lot more skewed towards conditioning and muscular size, right? So in my cardio video, I talked about how conditioning has to be specific to the thing that you're doing, right? So if you're gonna be trying to squat 500 pounds for one single, you're gonna need to be doing a lot of like 4 to 6 rep range work, right? And to get better at the 4 to 6 rep range work, so that's more towards the side of building muscle. So 4 to 6 is building a lot of muscle. Your 1 rep max is your 500, that's your peak strength. So then you're gonna need to do some muscular conditioning to make the 4 to 6 work a little bit easier, right? So you might do like 8 to 10, like I said, and that's gonna help you get conditioned to do that, right? So as you climb up the pyramid, right? So you can make your base as wide as you want, acquire a ton of volume until you can't recover essentially. Then you start whittling down the volume and ramping up the intensity, and now you're climbing the pyramid, right? And as you're doing that, you're also changing the movements, modifying them. So you might be doing more sets of 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 even, right? You're gonna be doing more like paused and pin variations of like the squat specifically, variations that teach you to produce a lot of force or allow you to practice that rather, right? So it's primarily skill acquisition, which is more towards the peak strength, right? But you're still gonna get some muscular size benefits, and then your conditioning is gonna dwindle, right? So you're not gonna be as conditioned or able to handle like high rep sets and lots of volume towards the peak, the same way that you would be when you're at the base, right? So, you can try to mix and match both, but you're gonna get kind of subpar results if you do that. So this is why it's important to start at the base, work up to the peak. And this really just applies to advanced athletes, right? So if you're a novice, you're not gonna be doing this. But a good way to think about this is that it's very similar to the 2-factor model of sports performance from starting strength, right? You have training and practice. So the base is very similar to your training, and then as you get further up, it's more your practice, right? So in this example, anything lifting related, right? Training and practice are a little bit blurred. They're very, very similar. But for example, if you are a football athlete, right? You're a kicker, who some people argue are not athletes, but if you're a kicker, trying to build your base is going to be a lot of strength training in the off season, right? You're going to be doing squatting, benching, pressing, deadlifting, power cleaning, some chin-ups, some rows. You might be doing like some sled pushing for conditioning, that sort of thing, right? So there's your base, right? It's strength and size and like a little bit of muscular conditioning. And then when football season comes around, you're going to be doing a lot less of that and a lot more skill acquisition. So like if you're a kicker, you're going to be doing lots of kicking, right? And this is going to make you better at the sport. So hope that makes sense. That's what building a base is all about. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, goodbye.